So, hey, everybody. So we are Stories of a Colorful World. We're here for another author conversations. I am Vanessa Mitchell, along with Kanika Mobley, and we are the co-founders of Stories of a Colorful World. So for those of you that aren't familiar with us, we are an online children's bookstore. And we focus on carrying children's books that feature diverse images of BIPOC characters written by BIPOC authors. And so we believe here that every child deserves to see themselves in the books that they read. And so that's why we focus on the groups and the diverse groups that we do. So tonight we are very excited, and this is a special conversation for us because we get to talk to Jasmine Crowe. And Jasmine is the founder and CEO of Goodr, a food waste management company that focuses on eliminating hunger and food waste. And Jasmine is also the author of Everybody Eats, a new children's book that'll be released this month. So welcome, Jasmine. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Vanessa.
And like I said, this is very special to us because Kanika and I met Jasmine a few years ago, I guess now, doing what I know she does best, which is giving back. And so we joined her for a trip to Panama to give back to the communities there. And that's part of the inspiration and what started the idea of Stories of a Colorful World. So I don't know that Jasmine knows that, but
that is the greatest story.
Yes,
I love that.
Got to share that. And so Jasmine, we're very excited. So thank you again for accepting our invitation.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so let's just jump in. And maybe we'll start with, for those that are unfamiliar with Goodr and your organization. So can you tell us a little bit more about the organization?
Yeah, so Goodr, we are a Atlanta-based tech company. We are leveraging technology and logistics to solve hunger and food waste. I started the company in 2017, so we celebrate our 5-year anniversary in January. And the idea actually came from the work I was doing in communities for years. I was feeding people that were experiencing homelessness or hunger, so mostly living unsheltered on the streets of downtown Atlanta, as well as other cities, or living in like low income senior high rises. And so I was doing that, and then a video of my work went viral and people were saying, this is so amazing, who donates the food? And the truth was nobody. I was couponing, price matching, taking $5 and $10 donations and making all this food. And so I started thinking I should really get it donated. Like just let's really focus on getting it. And as I was researching, I really fell into this rabbit hole about food waste. And I just couldn't believe that I was living in a country that was so wealthy, yet that was wasting so much perfectly good food every single year while people were going hungry. And that really was kind of the impetus behind me getting started with Goodr.
Wow. So did you have, just in terms of like your upbringing, like did you grow up kind of like in the culture of giving back?
Yeah, I think so. I think, my mom and my dad's military, retired now, but my mom and dad were always really involved in community service. My mom sat on a couple boards, and my dad was a big brother in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. And so I always saw him like young boys. And I think it's inspiring to know that even recently, several of the young boys that my dad mentored through the Big Brothers program have reached out to him and like just thanked him for being parts of their life. One of them went on to be a teacher. Another one, was like, he'll never forget the times that he spent with my dad, just getting to do things in the community. So I think I saw a lot of that as a kid and just always had a heart for service.
I think that's awesome. And Goodr hasn't just stopped with the food waste, right? Because you guys recently opened an actual grocery store.
Exactly, yeah. So we really sit, I guess, firmly at the intersection of food waste and hunger. While we don't believe that perfect waste, because we also produce pop-up grocery stores. We just recently opened our first in grocery store in partnership with hip hop star Gunna. We also are opening several more stores over the next few years. What's unique about our grocery stores is that they are free of charge. Like no one has to pay. They're free for everyone. And we really focus on like dignity, making sure that we're putting items that are name brand, things that are people that kids want or that people need and want in the store. So like coming really right in the middle. We want to make sure that we're giving people food that they want plus food that they need. And we're doing it in a way that we're providing them with a lot of dignity.
Wow, that is so inspirational, and just really thinking about like the work that you're doing around hunger. And what was your inspiration for then kind of like transitioning that work into a children's book?
I guess I was approached about doing a book after I gave my TED Talk my second TED Talk in 2019. And I might still do like an actual, nonfiction book just about hunger, just the fight. But I thought, I'm always asked, do you think you'll solve hunger in your lifetime? And the truth is, this affects 1 in 8 people on the planet. So this is not a small problem that I'm trying to solve. It's massive. I haven't even solved hunger yet in Atlanta, right? So just think in the world, probably not. But what I was hoping is that that'll be like my life's work. I want to do this until, my last day here. And I want kids to be inspired to kind of pick up the torch and follow me on the journey. So even though I may not solve hunger, I can get kids excited about joining me on the fight. So I think that was really the inspiration, is just to kind of pass the torch on to generation. And who knows, there may be one kid that reads this book in 10 years from now is doing similar work to me. And that's what the inspiration is. And then of course, I'm a new mom. So, wanted to have something for her to even be able to read to her and tell her about and this book really is my story kind of put into children's books. It's so exciting.
So speaking of, so how do you make it relatable? Like, how do you make hunger and eliminating hunger and food waste? How do you make that relatable to children in the book?
I think the best way to do it is just really to highlight, real situations. So in this story, Carter is the protagonist in the book, and she is, volunteering at a food bank with her mom and dad on the weekends, right? So something that any kid could do. And she sees her friend from school actually at the food bank. And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe, my friend is hungry. She's talking to it about her parents. She's wanting to help. It's bothering her that her friend is experiencing this. And she goes out on this journey to try and solve the problem. And that's kind of how I make it relatable. So it's kind of like she's doing something with her parents, which kids do all the time. She sees a friend from school, and now she's like, hey, I've got to be able to solve this problem.
Nice. And so, how was the process for you for actually going through and creating the book?
That was a heck of a process, let me tell you. It was a heck of a process. This is years in the making. This was not an overnight book. This was not something that I was able to just put together really quickly. I had to find an illustrator that I loved, that I felt like, could understand the story I was trying to tell. I chose to self-publish this book as opposed to going with a publishing company, and largely just based off of like the royalties and how it works. So I was learning, like, if you go with a company, you get all the press and all this stuff and they'll distribute it, but you also get like upwards, if you get 80 cents a book, you're doing really well. And so I was like, that's nothing, because what I wanted to do is use the proceeds of this book to actually solve hunger and actually, be able to use these proceeds to help kids. And so I think that was the reason why I chose to self-publish it. So then I had to figure out a lot, like, how do I get it printed? Where do I get it manufactured at? How am I going to sell it? All these different things, and luckily it went really well. We're already on our second print, and we've only been in pre-order. So I just know once it's out there, it's going to do even better. We've had a lot of schools that have reached out, people that are trying to order 50 and 60 and hundreds of books. So it's exciting to see, how it's all coming together. But let me tell you, it's not for the faint of heart. Our books were delayed. There's obviously tons of shipping delays. We've all seen it and been experiencing it, but then, that hurts. And you have to tell all your people that have pre-ordered my book, it's going to be delayed, but it's coming. Like, So there's a lot of things that it has its good and its bad. I think mostly for me, I can really take the proceeds of this book and reinvest it in feeding more kids. So being able to provide food, and maybe one day I want to now, having opened our first grocery store, and we've received requests from probably, I want to say nearly 2,000 different schools, people, teachers, to have a grocery store in their facility. So my hope is that I can sell enough books that we can actually sponsor one and just provide it for free at a school at no cost, and keep it going. So it's gonna do a lot of good.
I think, well, that's why the company is also called Goodr. So
Exactly.
right, right. And I think, I think it's such a relevant story because, food insecurity is real, right? And it's in
It's so real.
you'd never think, it's not always just, perhaps the homeless or who you might think has all the resources they need. It could be the person that, is right next to you. And so even for children to be able to recognize that, it doesn't have a color, right? It doesn't have,
it doesn't discriminate.
Right.
Yeah, at all.
It impacts everybody. So writing the book, did you think that, were you a writer? Were you a storyteller?
I mean, I think I'm used to telling my story, like how I got started with Goodr, what it is I do, why I do what I do. I definitely don't think I'm a storyteller. And I think the hardest part was trying to find a child's voice. And so I worked with a young lady named Sydney Brown, who was actually a screenwriter. So she writes like plays, and that's kind of she wants to be a playwright. And I told her, like, one day we got to turn this into a play, right? So hopefully we'll be able to do that. But just trying to find like a childlike voice, because again, this is 100% my TED Talk, which I already had written, that I turned into a children's book. So, trying to speak to like methane gas and food banks and just hunger. I even had to end up putting a glossary in the end of the book just so that kids could understand a lot of the crazy things that I was mentioning.
Absolutely. But it's so important because these are the conversations that they're having now.
Yeah.
And so how do we continue to have these conversations when there's so much going on around them?
It's also, Kanika, it's very, I guess, character building too. I think that's the other thing to know, because what people will read when they read Carter's story about her and her friend Emma, she is doing the right thing. Like, and even her friend says at one point in the book, like, Carter, you're a real friend, because she's not gossiping. Just imagine, the reality is 1 in 6 kids on this planet are going hungry at some point during the school year. For Black children and brown children, that's 1 in 3. So the chances that a kid in school knows another kid that's going hungry are very, very high. Of course, the kids that are like in private schools and the better schools, this may not be something that they experience, but traditional, public schools that are in communities, a lot of kids are experiencing this. They're getting free and reduced lunch. They could be going home without a lot of food. And what Carter tries to do is, make sure that everybody eats, right? But she does it in a way that she's not telling people about her friend going hungry. She's not telling other students. She's not making her friend feel bad. She's really trying to help her friend and exhibiting positive character traits, which I think are going to be really important, in empathy, right? Like being able to say, like, hey, I'm not going to bully you. This is our secret. I'm trying to help. Let me know if you need anything. And I care about you, and I care about what you're going through. And I don't want you to have to go through this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it ties to, our mission, right, is to increase access to diverse images of BIPOC children, right? And so for children to be able to see others in different environments and in different circumstances, and have empathy for others. But even others that read the book, whether you're Black or brown, right, for you to have empathy for others that are experiencing. So I think the story is very relevant and very needed, especially now. I mean, when you think about the impact of COVID in the last 2 years with the pandemic, I mean, I can imagine that even more families were impacted and continue to be impacted.
100%. It increased across the board. The percentage went up almost 2 to 3% for Black children and Hispanic children. And the USDA reports on this just came out in September. So not even 2 months full ago. was that report released. And so hunger is definitely, it's even heightened now. Another thing I think everybody needs to understand too, and I think we are all seeing it in the grocery store, prices are going up. So even though that there are food stamp increases and you're hearing these little things, you're really only meeting people where they kind of at the bare minimum because they already were getting a lot less. Another thing people need to understand is that everyone just doesn't get food stamps. There's a lot of people that are prevented from getting food stamps because they make too much. It's just all kind of things that go into it. And so there's all these misconceptions about hunger that I hope even on a childlike level, this book can begin to kind of demystify.
Yeah.
I love that. And so with all the work that you're doing and being a new mom and, you know, running this amazing company, do you envision creating any more books?
Oh yeah, I think it's great. Now I'm excited. I think, and I love the children's book, and because Nadia Fisher, who is my illustrator, we have just a really good relationship, and I think she just got the vision. I don't even think this book ends. Like, you know, this first book is called Everybody Eats. I think the next one may be going about, maybe it's like Nobody Wastes, and we really get into talking about food waste and what that means. So I think that could be like the next iteration of where I see this book going. And then just following Carter's journey.
So we know your inspiration for the book, but what would you say to other authors? So for our authors conversation platform, we try to interview lots of different authors, independent authors, new authors. And so what would your advice be to what could inspire others who are thinking about writing children's books, the journey in the process?
You know, I would say my advice would be to give yourself grace and give yourself time. Because originally, when I first was thinking about this book, I wanted it to come out. I've been working on it for over a year. So I think it's well important, like really for over 2 years. I had originally tried to go with like another small publishing company to publish it. But I was like, Jasmine, just do it yourself. Like, you know, they were small too. They were doing like a lot of celebrity memoirs and like helping celebrities write their books. And so they approached me, and it didn't work. It was moving too slow. I didn't feel like it was getting the direction. And it was frustrating. And then I was like, well, why don't you just publish it yourself? Like, you know, why don't you just self-publish it? Because you're going to be able to really control it. And it was a learning process, you know, and you read the articles and you take the steps and you almost make a checklist, but just give yourself grace and give yourself time because it doesn't happen overnight. It's not as quick as you think, but there are tons of resources out there. And if you have a story, I think there's a great quote that says everybody has a story within them that needs to be told. I definitely would encourage people to tell it. You know, this story I think is going to influence a lot of kids. And we are also donating another 1,000 to teachers across the country. We're releasing the paperback in December. So next month it'll be available, you know, just in time for the holidays. It's at a lower price point, and we're providing 1,000 to teachers across the country free of charge. So just imagine how many students are going to hear this story, and it's going to live on. And I think that's what's exciting about it. Like, you know, the end result is always worth all the trials and tribulations that you go through to get there, because it's something that you have dreamed about doing, and now you're actually accomplishing it.
I love that. So something that we generally ask our authors, particularly because, as Vanessa said, like our mission is really increasing access of diverse representation in children's books. And so what does diverse representation in children's books mean to you?
I mean, I want to say, I guess I'm a different kind of mom, right? Because if you look at my daughter's bookshelf, it's all diverse. Like, you know, I know when I was a kid, I don't quite think that was there. I think, you know, what do we have? Like Junie B. Jones and Nancy Drew. And, you know, we had those stories, and that was pretty much it. And I think at the time, I was just happy to see a story about a girl, right? So that kind of representation matters across the board. You know, I think about reading like the babysitters clubs and, you know, just all these books that I used to just read. And I never saw people that looked like me, but I still used to love the books. Now, you know, flash forward, you know, 25 years, oh, I feel like I'm older, right? 25 years, almost 30 years later, tons more books of characters of color, stories that kids can relate to. And I think it's important. I'm gonna tell you too, I've been getting a lot of negative you know, just, I mean, I've even gotten negative reviews of a book that's not even out, that no one has read, strictly because there's a Black girl on the cover. And so that's why it's even more important that this exists. People are like, oh, this is more diversity crap. And, you know, why are we trying to, where someone said on our Facebook, like, you know, where's the book that says everybody works? Because, you know, that's the only reason people are going hungry. And just, you know, the negative stuff makes me know even more so that this is so important. You know, that this, that telling a young Black girl that maybe looks like Carter, you can solve a really big problem just because of the way you look at it and the fact that it's going to affect people that maybe look like you. But the book definitely touches on the fact that hunger touches all races. Just as I was saying with Vanessa, there's no discrimination in it. But by having a diverse book, people are bothered by that. And that's so crazy to me because for many years, there was no such thing as a diverse book. And so it's so important to have more representation. If people are mad, let them be mad, but this matters. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Awesome. And we always say, you know, we're pushing to not be the corner of a bookstore in the African-American section or in the X section, right? This doesn't.
You know what I think about? I hated that too, like that Black book section. I used to hate that. I walked into Target the other day and I was telling my fiance, there were rows and rows of Black hair care products. And I was just telling him, like, 5-10 years ago, this was not the story. Like, I remember there used to be a small little section of just even Black hair care products. So just imagine if we could do a very similar thing for books and a kid being able to walk down Target's book aisle and see tons of characters that look like them, just as I saw all those natural hair care products and products for Black hair care. It's going to happen. And I think there's been enough talk about it. And the reality is with the ability for self-publishing, there's millions of copies out there. It's just hard sometimes to get them in front of the masses. I hope, and my goal is that I can get this book inside of like a Target or a really big brand publisher. Like I know Barnes & Noble's, Amazon, everybody, you can get in those just through the self-publishing options. But I think Target would be a dream, right? And trying to get it in a store is like a big goal.
Right.
Right. And really thinking about and not pigeonholing, you know, your book with a African-American female character on it is not just for African-American kids or not just 100%. For females, you know.
Because her best friend in the book is not even African-American. You know what I mean? Like that's the whole thing. The family, her best friend from school is not even a Black kid. She's kind of racially ambiguous. So you don't know if she's Hispanic, if she's white, like, you know, you don't really know. But she's not Black. And so just because her on the cover, she's Black, on the back, there's both kids. You know, it's just, people got to read it. You've got to open the book to understand it. You cannot, literally, this is the greatest thing ever, right? You can't judge a book by its cover. You hear that all the time. You've got to read the book and open it to know that it has so much more. And we talk about all races. You know, I have the principal of the school that the girls attend is Muslim, you know, and she has her hijab on and she's, you know, she's representing the Muslim heritage. Some of the people that she talks to at the grocery stores, the grocery store manager is a white man. You know, there's all kind of characters in the book and that's what it's about. And so people just have to open the book to understand that.
Yeah. Well, I definitely say the conversation is happening about more diversity in children's books. I mean, we got a lot further to go. Only 28% of the children's books published in the US, you know, are about feature diverse character, feature diverse.
Wow, that's even high. That's higher than I thought. Yeah. You know where I think we have a lot further to go, Vanessa? I would be curious to know how many of those are self-published. Because still so many of the books that I think like the big publishing houses are picking up, if you really look at it, they're like celebrity books about that have children of color on them. And I know that because if I think of me, you know, I have like the Grace Byers books and Matthew Cherry's books and Lupita's books because they have the celebrity and they could get published. I saw like Sierra and Russell Wilson are coming out with a children's book. Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade have the children's book Shady Baby, but why do you have to be a celebrity to get a children's book published? Like, where's the access for just everyday authors? And I think there's a long way to go there.
Right. And I'll give a plug for indie bookstores too, right? Like us.
Yeah,
One of
definitely.
the things that we're very intentional about is making sure that we include books that are written by independent authors.
Well, I
Right?
definitely got to get you guys some on however that works. You have to let me know because I definitely want to make sure.
You already know we're reaching out to you.
And I'm definitely going to send you guys one of our promo boxes. So those will be going out with the books as well. So sending this to like a lot of friends and influencers and a couple of celebrities. But the box actually is the Everybody Eats box, and it includes the book, but it also is curated with Black-owned food products. So we have fresh fruit from Black farmers, and then we have a lot of different food brands like tea and honey and pancake mix and cookies and granola that's all being curated specifically from Black-owned brands. So you're going to see all of that in the box that I'll definitely get to you guys.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
Yes. Are
Cool.
there any
I'm
other
excited.
projects that you're working on right now?
Not in the book space. You know, we are really, I'm actually trying to do an animation of Carter's story. So I am going to be working on that, trying to create like an animated short film about Everybody Eats. So that's like my big focus after we get the books out into people's hands and then we do our paperback. I want to do like some Black Friday sales and Cyber Monday sales. And then my biggest focus will be to create this animated story that maybe lives on YouTube or, you know, in a perfect world, maybe Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu. But that's the next thing. Yeah, you speak things into existence. And then Goodr, we are actually opening several more grocery stores. Our next one that opens is actually in a senior home. So it's in a low income senior high rise, and it allows like seniors to kind of come. It's bigger so they can be in their wheelchair